chains of innocence. The slave transport reeked of oil, sweat, and despair. 1,000 human voices had filled it when the Xerath Dominion swept through Earth's skies, their warships blotting out the sun. Now only a few dozen survivors remained in this particular cargo hold, each chained, each broken in body or spirit. The Xerath did not care whether their slaves survived the journey. For them, bodies were expendable, souls even more so. Among the prisoners sat a boy. He looked no older than 12, his tangled curls matted with grime, his face smeared with dust. The oversized shackles clanked loosely around his wrists and ankles as he sat cross-legged on the cold metal floor. He had not cried like the others. He had not begged when the guards shoved him aboard. His dark eyes followed every movement of the aliens with unsettling calm. The Xerath guards, towering reptilian figures in armor plates, dismissed him as harmless. A child was nothing. A child was weak, fragile, breakable. They laughed as they threw scraps of food at him, watching him catch them without complaint. To them, he was a curiosity at best, a pet at worst. But the boy Kael never flinched. When the transport finally docked on the remote colony of Corthus 7, Kael was dragged with the rest of the prisoners into the labor pits. There, humans were worked until their bones snapped, mining the toxic ores that fueled Xerath war machines. The overseers assigned Kael to hauling equipment. The aliens jeered at the sight of the small boy struggling to drag coils of heavy cabling across the dirt. They expected him to break in days. Yet somehow he did not. His thin arms strained, his knees buckled, but the cables moved. His breath came steady, controlled, as if he were conserving his strength with a precision that did not belong to a starving child. Other human captives noticed. "That boy doesn't tire," whispered Mara, an older woman whose back bore the scars of 100 lashes. She watched him with wary eyes. He works like a machine, but most were too broken to care. Hope had no place here. The aliens certainly did not care. To them, Kael was nothing more than another body in the dirt. A child could not rebel. A child could not kill. Kael let them believe it. Each night, when the slaves were herded back into their cages, Kael sat quietly in the shadows. His hands, though bound, twitched with tiny, precise movements. He was not simply fidgeting. He was calibrating. His pupils dilated unnaturally wide, faintly reflecting the dim glow of the compound lights. Data scrolled across his vision in lines of code only he could see, thermal signatures, power grid schematics, surveillance blind spots. The child was not what he seemed. He remembered little of his past. Flashes of sterile, white laboratories. The cold hum of machines. Voices speaking in clipped military tones. Project Seraphim. Human adaptability merged with cybernetic resilience. Perfect infiltration unit. A weapon that looks harmless until it's too late. Kael had been born human, but he had been remade into something else. Something Earth's enemies were never meant to discover. The Dominion had enslaved a child. They had shackled a cyborg killer. For now, Kael kept his secret buried. He let them think he was weak. He let them jeer and laugh. He watched, he listened, he learned. Every insult, every blow, every order barked in the alien tongue became data. Every guard patrol, every security routine, every storage cache of weapons, cataloged and stored in his memory banks. Patience was his programming. Survival was his instinct. One evening, as the slaves were marched back from the pits, a guard grew bored. With a cruel grin, he jabbed Kael in the stomach with the butt of his rifle, sending the boy sprawling. The other humans winced, expecting to hear a cry of pain. But Kael said nothing. He lay still, face down in the dust. The guard laughed and turned away. Kael's eyes flickered faintly, unseen by anyone else. His systems had absorbed the impact, dispersing the force through alloy bones hidden beneath flesh. He had not been hurt, only calculating. In the darkness of his cell that night, Kael flexed his hands, the faint whir of servos muffled by flesh. His gaze shifted to the electrified fence that surrounded the compound. His inner display traced its circuits, mapping weaknesses. His time was coming. For now, he was a slave, a child in chains. Harmless, forgettable, But the Dominion had made a fatal mistake. They thought they had broken Earth. They thought they had captured prey. Kael sat in silence, his expression unreadable. Somewhere deep within, a dormant protocol stirred, like a predator waking from slumber. The aliens would learn soon enough. They had not enslaved a child. They had unleashed their executioner. The awakening. The days on Korthus, 7 bled into each other, marked only by the cruel rhythm of labor and lash. For the slaves, every sunrise was another sentence of pain. For Kael, every sunrise was another calculation. The other humans whispered about him now. He never tired, never fell ill, never cried. He ate less than anyone, yet carried more weight. At first, they thought him resilient. But slowly, a sliver of unease grew. Something about the boy wasn't right. One afternoon, the pit boiled with tension. A group of older human men, their backs hardened by years of toil, finally snapped. They charged at the guards with rusted tools and jagged rocks, a desperate attempt at freedom. For a heartbeat, hope flared in the air. It ended in screams. The Xerath overseers descended with electric whips and plasma rifles, slaughtering the rebels before they even reached the gates. The crackle of energy, the stench of burning flesh, it silenced the pit. The uprising was over before it began. Kael stood among the slaves, silent, his expression blank. He did not move to help the men. He did not shed a tear when their charred bodies hit the dirt. His eyes simply recorded data, analysis, patterns, weaknesses. But when the guards swept through the survivors, they singled him out. "You, child," one growled in its guttural voice. The alien raised a stunned prod, amusement flashing in its slit-pupiled eyes. "You watched. You did nothing. Are you a coward?" The prod lashed across Kael's side. Searing pain meant to drop him screaming. Instead, Kael staggered, then straightened. His small hands gripped the ground, steadying himself. The overseer snarled and struck again, harder. And that was what happened. The prod connected, but the boy did not fall. The rod sparked and hissed as if striking stone. Kael's arm jerked up, catching the weapon mid-swing. The alien blinked in shock. For a second, the child's eyes glowed faintly, an unnatural metallic sheen flickering in his pupils. The overseer yanked the prod free, unsettled. He muttered something under his breath and shoved Kael aside, unwilling to waste more time. But Kael knew what had happened. A subsystem buried deep inside him had stirred. The stun current had activated a dormant circuit, awakening fragments of his true self. That night, in the shadows of the slave pens, Kael felt it fully. His hands trembled, but not with fear, with power. Servos whirred softly under his skin as cybernetic muscle fibers flexed. His vision sharpened until he could see every wire in the electrified fence, every microfracture in the alien stone walls. Memories crashed into him, unbidden. White rooms, needles piercing his veins, voices reciting commands. Unit designation, Seraphim 9. Combat infiltration prototype. Engineered for silent termination of hostile command structures. Mission parameters. Eliminate threats to humanity. Kael gasped, clutching his head. He wasn't just a boy. He wasn't just human. He was something else, something built to kill. His hands unclenched, revealing blood. No, synthetic fluid, leaking faintly from beneath his fingernails. His flesh was human, but beneath it, steel. Across the pen, a guard patrolled lazily. Kael watched him, his mind calculating. Routes, angles, probabilities. He shouldn't act yet. His systems urged patience. But the awakening had left him restless, humming with energy. The guard stopped near Kael's cell. He leaned against the bars, bored. Kael moved. Silent as a shadow, he slid forward, his small frame unnoticed in the gloom. His hand shot through the bars, gripping the guard's wrist with impossible strength. The alien snarled, raising its weapon, but Kael's other hand snapped forward, 2 fingers striking the creature's throat with surgical precision. Cartilage crunched. The alien collapsed, choking soundlessly. Kael dragged the body closer, his face blank, his eyes cold. His small hands twisted, and with a muted crack, the guard went still. The humans in the pen stared, horrified. Kael said nothing. He knelt, rifling through the corpse with mechanical precision. From his belt, he took a small blade, a communicator chip, and a vial of stimulant serum. He tucked them away silently, then pushed the body into the shadows where the darkness would hide it until morning. Mara, the scarred woman who had watched him before, whispered hoarsely, "What are you?" Kael looked at her, his face expressionless. For a heartbeat, the faint glow returned to his eyes. "Not what they think," he answered quietly. After that night, whispers spread. The guards noticed their numbers thinning, one missing on patrol, another vanished from his quarters. The overseers tightened security, convinced a resistance cell was forming. They never suspected the boy. Kael's systems continued to awaken, each day bringing new capabilities online. Adaptive combat algorithms hummed in his mind, teaching him to fight in ways no human ever could. His muscles grew stronger, his reflexes faster. But with every upgrade came something darker. His empathy dulled. His thoughts sharpened into ruthless calculations. Where the other slaves saw torment, Kael saw opportunity. Where they saw lives, he saw assets or liabilities. Late one night, as he sat cross-legged in the dirt, the words escaped his lips in a whisper. They enslaved the wrong human. The words weren't spoken like a child. They were spoken like a machine. And somewhere deep inside, a mission directive flickered back to life. Eliminate the enemy. Predator among prey. The colony grew tense. Guards snapped at each other. Their patrols doubled, their eyes darting into shadows as if ghosts lurked there. Rumors spread among them. Slaves vanishing from cells, corpses found in maintenance tunnels with throats crushed or spines broken. None of the cameras caught the killer in the act. The Xerath commanders blamed a hidden resistance cell. They never once looked at the boy. Kael sat quietly during roll call, chains clinking around his wrists. His head bowed, his expression blank. To the guards, he was just another child, harmless and small. But inside, his processors hummed with calculations. Every shift of patrol schedules, every increase in guard rotations, every tightening of curfews, it was all data. And the data told him one truth: the aliens were afraid. Fear was leverage. Fear was a weapon. That night, Kael slipped from his cell. The communicator chip stolen from the dead guard scrambled the sensors for exactly 6 minutes before burning out. 6 minutes was all he needed. He moved through the shadows like a phantom. His body no longer felt like that of a boy. It was an extension of perfect machinery. Muscles enhanced by carbon fiber contracts, bones lined with alloy, nerves fused with adaptive circuits. Each step was silent, each breath controlled. The first target was easy. A guard leaned against the fence board. Kael crept behind him, his small frame making no sound. His arm shot out, wrapping around the alien's throat. The guard clawed at him, muscles straining, but the boy's grip was unyielding steel. Within seconds, the guard collapsed lifeless. Kael dragged the body into the dark, wiped his hands on the dirt, and moved on. By dawn, 3 guards were missing. The overseers cursed, beating the slaves for information. None spoke. None dared. Many didn't even understand what was happening. Mara did. She watched Kael with haunted eyes. She had seen him return at night, dust on his clothes, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The boy frightened her as much as he gave her hope. The killings escalated. Kael was no longer testing himself. He was hunting. Patrol units of 2, then 4, then 6 fell to him in silence. He struck from vents, from rooftops, from shadows. His tactics adapted instantly to their countermeasures. Energy shields became useless when he severed power relays. Armor crumpled beneath his enhanced strength. And always he left one survivor, just long enough to see his face, the face of a child, before the final blow. The whispers spread among the Xerath soldiers. A ghost, a demon, a human weapon. The tipping point came when Commander Xerath arrived. Clad in crimson armor, towering above his soldiers, Xerath was a veteran of countless campaigns. He strode into the pit, voice booming. "Slaves, you think you can rise against the Dominion? You think your kind has power? He lifted one of the missing guards' helmets, crushed and bloody, and hurled it into the dirt. This rebellion ends tonight. The slaves shrank back in terror, but Kael simply watched. That night, Kael made his move. The storm was thick, rain hammering against metal walls, masking his movements. Kael slipped into the command barracks, cutting power lines as he went. Darkness swallowed the facility. Panic rippled through the guards. Kael struck like lightning. A squad stumbled through the corridors with flashlights. One by one, they were dragged into shadows, their screams muffled, their lights snuffed out. Another squad fired blindly into the dark, but Kael was already behind them, blades of alloy sliding from his forearms, cutting throats with surgical efficiency. By the time the emergency generators roared to life, the barracks floor was littered with bodies. And standing in the middle of it all was Kael, drenched in rain and blood, eyes glowing like molten steel. Commander Xerath entered, weapon raised. His reptilian eyes narrowed as he saw the truth. Not a child, he hissed. A construct. Kael tilted his head, expression calm. His voice was quiet, mechanical. Target identified. The commander roared and charged. His plasma blade slashed, but Kael's reflexes outpaced him. The boy ducked, spun, and drove a blade into the alien's side. Xerath snarled, backhanding him across the room with inhuman strength. Kael hit the wall hard, but he rose instantly, unshaken. The commander's armor hissed as it sealed the wound. You know, human, you're a machine. Kael's eyes flickered. I am both, and that makes me your end. He launched forward, faster than the alien could track. His small hands locked onto Xerath's helmet, servos whining with effort, and with a sharp twist he tore the mask free. The commander's reptilian face twisted in rage, before Kael's blade pierced his throat. Xerath collapsed, gurgling. Kael stood over him, silent, watching the life drain from his eyes. For the first time, fear shone in the commander's gaze. Fear of a human. The colony fell silent in the days that followed. Patrols thinned, morale shattered. The slaves whispered a single word among themselves, savior. But Mara, watching Kael as he sat alone in the shadows, whispered a different word. Killer. Kael didn't argue, for he knew what he was. Not a savior, not a child, a weapon, the killer of worlds. The colony was broken. The once proud Xerath overseers now patrolled in pairs, trembling at every shadow. Their commander lay rotting in the pits, his armor stripped and his corpse displayed as a warning. The humans did not put him there. Kael did. The boy no longer pretended to be weak. The facade of innocence had fallen away, leaving only the predator beneath. Yet the fight was far from over. Above Korthus 7, a Xerath warship orbited, its cannons trained on the colony. Orders had already been sent. If the colony could not be stabilized, it would be erased. No witnesses, no survivors. Kael knew this. His systems had intercepted the transmission days ago. His mission was clear. Survival was not enough. The Dominion had to fear humanity. That night, as storms raged across the colony, Kael moved. He guided a handful of freed humans through maintenance tunnels, using them as distractions, not allies. For every group that fled to safety, he gave them stolen weapons and crude maps. But Kael did not flee. His path was upward, toward the warship. The docking bay was heavily guarded. Rows of soldiers stood watch, plasma rifles gleaming in the rain. Kael stepped into the open. At first, the Xerath laughed. A child, unarmed, standing before their fortress. But their laughter died when Kael's eyes glowed, his flesh rippling as alloy claws slid from beneath his skin. He moved before they could fire. A blur of motion, a storm of blades. Rifles shattered, armor split, bodies fell. Screams echoed through the bay as Kael carved through the guards with cold precision. Every strike was efficient, every kill silent within seconds. When it was done, the docking bay was painted in blood, and Kael stood alone among the fallen. He boarded the shuttle. The ship's controls responded to his touch instantly, as if built for him. Circuits whispered in his mind, machines bending to his will. He wasn't just human. He was interface, weapon, and pilot combined. The shuttle launched into the storm, breaking through the atmosphere. Above, the warship loomed, a fortress of steel and fire. Kael guided the vessel into its docking channel with flawless precision. When the doors opened, he stepped into the heart of the enemy. Xerath soldiers lined the corridors, their commander barking orders. Plasma fire erupted. Kael charged forward, bullets sizzling past him, his systems predicting every shot before it was fired. He moved like water, flowing between enemies, striking faster than their eyes could follow. His claws tore through armor, his fists crushed skulls. The ship became a slaughterhouse. He advanced deck by deck, leaving silence in his wake. The humans who had escaped from the colony watched from stolen monitors, horrified at the child who killed as if born for it. At last, Kael reached the command bridge. The Xerath overlord stood waiting, cloaked in ceremonial armor, flanked by his elite guard. His voice was calm, though his scaled hands trembled slightly. So, this is humanity's secret, a machine in a child's skin. Kael said nothing. His gaze swept the room, calculating. You are not human, the overlord sneered. You are a tool, nothing more. Kael's voice was cold, mechanical. Tools have purpose. My purpose is to end you. The guard charged. Kael met them head-on, his body blurred, his movements too fast for the eye. One fell with a severed spine, another with his chest crushed. In seconds, the guards were gone. The overlord drew a massive plasma blade, his scaled face twisting in fury. You cannot kill an empire, child. Kael stepped forward. Watch me. The battle was brutal. The overlord's strength was immense, his blade carving molten scars across the deck. But Kael adapted. Every strike, every feint, every movement became data. His algorithms adjusted, his attacks sharpened. Finally, Kael slipped past the blade. His claws sank into the overlord's chest, piercing scales and bone. Within human strength, he tore the alien open, ripping the weapon from his grasp. The overlord collapsed, choking on his own blood. His last sight was the boy standing over him, expressionless, eyes glowing like fire. Kael accessed the command console. His hands sank into the interface ports, his cybernetics merging with the warship systems. Alarms blared as he seized control of every weapon, every engine. The humans on the surface looked up as the warship's cannons pivoted, not toward them, but outward, into the void. Kael opened a transmission. His face appeared on every Xerath channel, every Dominion frequency. A child's face. This is humanity, he said, his voice flat, cold, and unyielding. You came to enslave us. You thought we were weak. You were wrong. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Then, enslave us again, and we will kill you. The transmission cut. Across the galaxy, alien warlords froze as the message replayed. The image of a human child drenched in alien blood burned into their memory. Kael's eyes dimmed slightly as he ended the broadcast. He released the ship's weapons, setting its cannons to fire on Xerath outposts across the sector. Explosions lit the skies above Corthus 7. The humans below cheered, their chains broken. Yet when they looked up at the warship, they did not cheer for Kael. They whispered in awe and fear. Savior. Killer. Monster. Kael stood alone on the bridge, watching the flames spread. His mission protocols whispered of further targets, further enemies. But beneath it all, a fragment of something human stirred, a faint ache, a memory of being a boy before the machines. He pushed it down. He was not a boy anymore. He was humanity's shadow, their vengeance, their executioner. And in the silence of the warship, Kael whispered to himself, his voice lost in the hum of machinery. They should have left Earth alone.